Steve Rogers. You can't talk about why his replacements failed without talking about why the original worked. Steve Rogers was dreamed up a long time ago in a very different world. His brand of pure, uncompromising idealism was something that pretty much only worked in comic books. It was hard to translate a character like that into live action, but somehow he not only worked, he became the centerpiece of the MCU. And I think it's scenes like this that both in the MCU and the real world show you what Steve Rogers is about. I believe Steve works because he represents to viewers the part of us that's always trying to do better. In a world full of heroes like Tony, who are just jaded from their experiences, Steve Rogers is about knowing what's right and never backing down on it. Sure, he's very skilled, but he's just a man at the end of the day. He's a lot like Spider-Man. They both work because they both embody two very relatable human desires, trying to do the right thing no matter the odds. But while Peter Parker is someone you relate to, Steve Rogers is someone you look up to. It's very necessary then for any Captain America to be a source of hope.
We'll lose. And we'll do that together too.
While Steve Rogers has incredible martial arts, near perfect control of his shield, and the strength to bicep curl a helicopter, none of that is what makes him so beloved. It's the guy who'll stand in front of Thanos' entire army alone and wounded that you will remember. It's the guy who won't back down even when everyone around him is telling him he's wrong. It's the guy that no matter what, always makes the sacrifice play. Because long before any serum, suit, or shield, he had the heart of a hero. And the thing people need to realize is that Steve isn't immune to being human. He woke up in a world that he no longer recognized, confused and lost, and spent a lot of his character arc just adjusting to that and being in doubt. He lost his own best friend to Hydra. He didn't get the chance to be with the woman he loves, Peggy Carter. He saw the horrors of war. Steve has been exposed to everything that should make him just as jaded, skeptical, or realistic as any other hero. But Steve's way of life is a choice, not a superpower. And it's one he makes every single day he picks up the shield. The choice to stay true to what you know you should do and who you know you could be. With that being said, let's focus on exactly what his replacements lack and why they don't fill the void Steve left behind. Isaiah Bradley. A lot of that harsh reality I'm talking about is best represented by the character of Isaiah Bradley. In a lot of ways, he's Steve's opposite, someone who was defined by the evil he was exposed to in the world, and who could ever blame him? Isaiah Bradley was part of a group of 300 black soldiers, as stated in the comics, who were essentially abducted and forced to participate in an inhuman trial for a new super soldier serum. The scientists didn't even tell them what they were being injected with.
You know what went wrong? A handful of us got shot up with different versions of that serum. But they don't tell us what it is.
Most were told that it was a tetanus shot, and most of these men died agonizing deaths, their bodies literally tearing themselves apart as the unstable formula failed to take. Isaiah was the one miracle, becoming the only one whose body handled the strain. Just like Steve Rogers disobeyed orders to save the 107th in World War II, Isaiah had his own defining moment of rebellion. During the Korean War, a group of his fellow soldiers, men who had survived the experiments alongside him, were captured and held in a POW camp. The government was prepared to let them die to clean up the evidence of the program. Isaiah wouldn't have it. He went behind enemy lines alone and rescued every single one of them. But while Steve received a Medal of Honor for that same act, Isaiah received a court-martial. His heroism didn't inspire the government. They were terrified by his power and the fact that he was a walking, breathing witness to their war crimes. This is the part that hits the hardest. Isaiah was thrown into a secret prison for 30 years. During that time, he was a lab rat. They drew his blood daily, testing it, trying to reverse engineer the perfect serum from his DNA. They treated his biological makeup as a state property. They told his wife Faith that he had died in the war. They gave her a fake death certificate and a folded flag. Meanwhile, they told Isaiah that she had died, stripping away his last reason to hope.
They told her I was dead. And after a while, she was gone.
He was a ghost in a machine they used him for parts. He only survived because a sympathetic nurse, the only person who treated him like a human being, helped him fake his death and escape into the shadows.
There was a nurse. She took pity on me. Wrote up some fake reports, something. She had me declared dead.
You remember how Steve's entire thing in Civil War was that people with agendas can't be trusted?
No, but it's run by people with agendas, and agendas change.
A lot of that is rooted in a distant distrust of institutions, and a lot of it is because for every Steve Rogers, there are hundreds of Isaiah Bradleys. Isaiah wasn't dreamed up in a lab to be a hero. He was drafted into a nightmare to be a statistic. He is the dark reflection of the super soldier program, the part of the story that doesn't get a museum exhibit or a commemorative plate. And the thing is, Isaiah has what it takes. Physically, he was just as strong as Steve, and he had that same drive in him to do what was right at the cost of everything else. No sane man would have disobeyed orders as he did, but Isaiah wasn't okay with what was happening. Knowing that he had power, he felt it was his responsibility to do something about it, and that's the essence of being Captain America. In the end, it's a case of circumstances, because in his shoes, who could say they'd do any better? In another world, he could definitely have been Captain America. Sam Wilson. We are really not trying to rain on Sam's parade, but we have to admit that Sam Wilson was never going to be enough to fill the hole Steve Rogers left behind. Steve was, as we've discussed, so much more than a guy with a shield and a uniform. It was the fact that he was everyone's moral compass and that unbreakable will of his. But speaking of being tough to break, let's talk about the first obvious difference between the two, the serum problem. And I'm not going to lie, this is actually one of those things that, in my opinion, makes Sam look pretty good. Now, why? If he had the serum, he'd be 10 times stronger, right? But you gotta understand, Captain America is who he is because of his heart, not his strength. And taking an enhancement, not being completely human anymore, that would be Sam betraying his heart. So just for the ability to stick to his guns, choose the harder path, and live up to Steve's legacy? Listen, I gotta say, I don't think this is the argument people make it out to be. I mean, serum or not, Steve was by far the least superpowered out of every hero around him. There are many more reasons why Sam Wilson isn't the next Captain America, but this is not one of them. It's actually one of the reasons why he's currently a pretty good candidate for the mantle and the shield. He spent his career as a counselor for veterans, helping people deal with the trauma of war as ordinary humans. He believes that the moment you take the serum, you lose your connection to the people you're supposed to protect. Plus, after what he learned about how the serum literally ruined the lives of so many who came before him, especially Isaiah Bradley, there's no way he'd look at it as a gift. The serum was a gift for Steve, but to many others, it was a tool of state-sponsored trauma and experimentation. Now, being pretty good doesn't mean he's the right fit. It just means there isn't a better choice right now. Then there's the stepdad syndrome. Look, joining a franchise as the replacement for a legend is like being the new stepdad. You can be the nicest guy in the world, but the audience is still going to scream, "You're not my real dad." And hey, I get it. Chris Evans as Steve Rogers was one of those Hall of Fame comic book castings, man. RDJ and Evans fit those roles like a glove. So stepping into their mantle both in-universe and out is going to be a big ask. It's essentially Disney saying, remember that thing you loved so much? Here's the new version. Enjoy. And you know what? It could have worked. Sam and Steve had a great friendship in the MCU, and even in the comics, he's often depicted as one of Steve's closest friends. But the bigger issue here is presence. Steve was in every movie, every trailer, every conversation. He was present throughout the Infinity Saga constantly. Can we really say the same for Sam outside of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Brave New World? The role of Captain America is one that needs a lot of presence as well, because you're essentially the centerpiece of Earth's mightiest heroes. You have to be on the ground, on the front lines, taking up space wherever you can. Simply put, Sam's character just hasn't been through what Steve's character has. Sam's barely had the same opportunities by comparison. I will say this though, he's not just the best choice available, he genuinely could grow into the role one day. And I can definitely see him not only living up to Steve's legacy, but surpassing it. Because again, he has heart, and to be Captain America, that's all you've ever really needed. No serum or shield required. John Walker. Honestly, John is the one guy I can fully say just outright failed at being Captain America. On paper, he did everything right, followed every order, checked every box, but he was the farthest thing from Steve Rogers. And if I were to really sum up his character, it would be the one line Tony gave to Peter when he took his suit.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it, okay?
And that applies here too. If you're nothing without the shield, then you shouldn't have it. And that couldn't be truer with John Walker. Again, on paper, he was a perfect choice. Let's talk physicals first. John Walker had the best base to work with out of every replacement. He was already at peak human levels and was excelling athletically. On top of that, he was a natural leader, a highly decorated soldier with 3 Medals of Honor, a record in U.S. history. And he was someone who genuinely wanted to serve his country and do good by it. That all sounds exactly like Cap, right? See, the thing is, you strip away the strength, the service of a soldier, and even the patriotism from Steve, and you still have a guy with a heart of gold. With John, though, that's really not the case. He's a soldier, not a hero, and that difference couldn't be clearer than here. Steve would think 10 times about the consequences of taking a life, let alone taking it in such a public, violent way. He would think about the impact he's having, about the message he's sending. But all John is thinking about here is release. He's angry, he's shaken, and he needs a target to take it out on immediately. John is somebody who, at least I think, thrives off of validation. He needed the suit, title, and applause to feel like he was enough. He has an air of cockiness and ego about him that Steve never did. And maybe I'm reading too deeply into this, but I always think about this scene. He could have said, "I'm Captain America," but he just said that he's Steve Rogers.
I am Groot!
I am Steve Rogers.
And that, to me, at least showed that Steve always remained grounded to his roots, that he never identified with the title or the prestige of being an Avenger over, just being Steve Rogers. Despite that, there's something really human about his failure. I think a lot of people can relate to wanting to live up to a better standard and not being able to, and even being crushed under the pressure. He is certainly a lot better in Thunderbolts, and I can see him turning into a genuine hero, but for now, he's not Captain America, not even close. And that's because Captain America is someone who is defined by the impact he has on those around him too. Captain America is the guy who makes you want to be better, and more often than not, he does it by trying his hardest to be better himself. It's just a natural effect, and no one on this list has that yet.